What's going on, Lion fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Meko, joined by my guy Morgan here. And Morgan, I was planning for us to do like a nice fun video to be a little lighthearted, to have like a little bit of fun in the middle of the week. OTAs just started. I was in a good mood for the most part, a little tired, but I was in a good mood. And then our good friend, Chief of over here at Pride of Detroit uploaded a news article. And at the very end of this article, if you guys are able to actually make it through like all the news that's coming out about the Lions, there was one little link, Morgan, at the end of this paragraph that he had. And I had to be foolish and I had to click it. And now we're about to do a video that like I did not plan for us to do, but I'm a little upset. I don't know how you're feeling. I'm a little irritated with Pro Football Focus because not with Pro Football Focus, with PFF and the article that they put out, because I don't know. I just can't wrap my mind around the logic that they used for this article.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I wasn't surprised, just because like PFF, like we always say on this channel, guys, like it's a useful tool, but it's not necessarily like the end all be all of like football factoids, right? Like it's something that you can factor into your analysis. And sometimes if it's like really like Penei Sewell's grade is like his run blocking was like a 95 or something last year, something insane. So like obviously you can probably check that off, like that's good, but like sometimes in the middle, anyways. But yeah, PFF, Trevor Sikkema wrote an article where Jared Goff was ranked.
Oh, wait, this is a Sikkema article? I didn't even like look at who wrote it.
Trevor Sikkema.
Now I'm even more upset because I like Trevor. I think Trevor's like actually a really like knowledgeable guy on football. I actually like Trevor Sikkema. Now this makes me even more irritated. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
bro. No, you're like I happened to look because we didn't even look at that or talk about that during our prep. You kind of just look at the site, but yeah, Trevor Sikkema wrote a article where he tiered and ranked the quarterbacks going into the 2024 season. And I'll let Meko like kick it off, but yeah, people are going to be upset where Jared Goff is, and as y'all know, a lot of people in the comments will get mad at me and Meko because we're not necessarily like Jared Goff's biggest fans. Like I'm a fan of his. He performed well in the playoffs, and he's a big time quarterback, and he got paid like one. But at the end of the day, we believe he's a part of the reason the Lions win, not necessarily, shouldering a big burden, if you will. So yeah, definitely ranked a little too low for my liking, and we're going to get into it because there's some right there where I'm like, nah.
Yeah, and so I'm going to pull up Trevor's article here. I'm so disappointed, man. Like, I am,
That's
bro.
funny.
Like, I'm such a I actually do. I like Trevor's like stuff, and as far as like his writing, I think him and what's his name, Connor Rogers, I think. They have like a really good like draft show. I really like them. This is disappointing. So over here at the top, he starts out with tier 1, and he has Mahomes in a tier all to himself. And Morgan, I can't argue with that, right? I do think sometimes we pump up Patrick Mahomes a little too much, but it's hard to argue when he just came off a season winning back-to-back Super Bowls, right? He's clearly like QB1 in terms of the NFL. So I don't have a huge issue with breaking him out into his own tier. And then you get into the elites. Oh, sorry, my bad. Anything you want to add to that?
Nope, I was going to say, completely agree. He's by himself. He's the Michael Jordan of this era, however you want to phrase it. In complete agreement. Actually, we talked about it before. Like the top 5 is how I would rate the quarterbacks myself. So, top 5, I'm right there in step with him. But yeah, this is interesting. I do agree with this too. How do you feel about the elite tier? Would you add anybody or subtract anyone?
No, I actually like the elite tier, right? I know there's probably going to be some questions about Josh Allen because, again, he just hasn't had quite the success of, obviously hasn't made it to a Super Bowl like Joe Burrow has, but neither has Lamar Jackson. Hasn't made it to a Super Bowl yet, but Lamar has
Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
No, it's like,
you run into Patrick Mahomes, when you run into the guy that's in a tier of his own, like that's what these 4 guys have in common. And even the 5th guy to an extent with Justin Herbert, down there in the next tier that we're going to look at. But no, I have no problem with the elite tier, right? This is perfectly fine. This is where things start getting a little like nah, we're not in Kansas anymore. Like we're in a completely different. We're in the twilight zone here because 5 I'm cool with. I think Justin Herbert has all of the talent to be considered arguably a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And I think whenever you start ranking like top 5s, it's usually that 5th position that could literally be rotated out for any other player, right? Like you could literally take 5 and replace them with 6 or 7. Like that's usually they should be that close. So I have no problem with Justin Herbert being there at 5. Dak Prescott at 6 is getting ridiculous. Like we got to stop doing this to Dak. He doesn't deserve this type of like people come so ridiculous at Dak. And I think it's because we keep doing stuff like this. We keep putting him in the top 10. And he's not a top 10 quarterback. Morgan?
No, and this isn't just us being Cowboys haters either, guys. Like this is just documented, unfortunately for Dak, right? Like he just time and time again, like they got boat raced by the Packers in the playoffs. Like we were, like to give y'all context, like there was the first Lions playoff game, so they were playing the Rams, and we were in this bar inside of Ford Field because it was cold, so we just went inside, and we were just watching the Packers run over the Cowboys, and we were like, "Yo, if we win, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves." But yeah, it was just it was pretty interesting, and yeah, I don't. This is where I agree with you. I would keep Herbert at 5. He's got all the tools, man. He's like literally got a jugs machine attached to his shoulder. He's big. He's fast. Seems like he does things the right way. But yeah, we got to see it now. Like we get
tough guy, right? Plays through injuries. All like the things that you want out of a franchise quarterback.
Got it all. Yeah, agreed.
And I know there are probably some stats that Trevor points out here. I can see passing grade. I can see all this other type of stuff. I know there's probably some metrics here that make you think like, oh no, Dak Prescott is a top 10 quarterback. I've seen the dude play. All right. That's all I gotta say. I've seen him play. We're not doing this with Dak. But then you have Matthew Stafford at 7, and I'm not never going to apologize for it. I still love Matthew Stafford, regardless of the divorce between us and him in Detroit. Like what he did for this organization for 12 years, he was one of the primary reasons that I continue to watch the Lions play football. And I thought he had top 10 talent then when he played for us. I'm not going to switch up just because he plays on the other side of the country now for another team. I think he does still have top 10 talent. So I don't have a huge issue with him at 7. I could see some people maybe having him around 8 or 9, but 7 is perfectly fine with me.
Yep, I agree. I would, if we were making this list ourselves, I would have Stafford behind Herbert. Like he was the only reason the Rams didn't get blown out by the Lions in the wild card round. Like he was making silly throw after silly throw and like willing that team because like they were getting, and he was getting battered, man. Like,
yeah.
And the couple throws, I was just like, are you kidding me? Because they were insane. Like he dropped them in a bucket while he was getting blasted by Hutch and Aleem McNeil and a boom, boom, and just impressive. So yeah, I would have Stafford there. But yeah, having, again, the Dak thing is crazy because he doesn't belong with the rest of these guys that are currently on the screen.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers at 8. I think this is still kind of like people holding on to the past and not wanting to drop him any lower than he has been. It's been 2 seasons since Aaron Rodgers was last in the postseason. Obviously, last year he tore his Achilles, but even that last season in Green Bay, the Lions kept them out of the postseason. I think Aaron has started to slide, and I get like again having him at 8 might seem like a slide to some people. Morgan, I don't see why Aaron Rodgers needs to be in the top 10 at this point. I think there's enough good quality quarterback play in the NFL for Aaron Rodgers to not be in the top 10.
Yeah, this is where I'm like, come on, Trevor, because I certainly wouldn't have Aaron Rodgers in front of CJ Stroud at this point, right? CJ Stroud would be right after Matthew Stafford for me if we're making this. Like, what else do you want to see? Like, and he's only going to get better. Like, the game's going to continue to slow down for him, and he's a great. He's going to be a really good player in this league, elite player in this league for a long time. So, yeah, I'm taking aside my disdain for Aaron Rodgers as a human being. Yeah, it's been 2 years, man, and he's coming off a torn Achilles, like someone else we're going to get to here in a little bit. But I just don't really understand that. And like you talked about that last year in Green Bay, he wasn't that good, man. Like there was a lot of Packers people like, all right, well, yeah, get out of here. Like, let's see what we have in love.
Exactly.
So
You have Jalen Hurts here at 9, and then like you just mentioned, CJ Stroud here at 10. Again, I think this is accurate enough, right? I think CJ Stroud showed enough to where like I would feel comfortable putting him at 10. I understand why some people may be like, let's keep him out of the top 10 until he does it 2 years in a row. But I think I'm right there with you. I think CJ Stroud looked that good. But at the same time, by putting Jalen Hurts and CJ Stroud at 9 and 10 on this list, we now know that Jared Goff is not among the top 10 quarterbacks according to Trevor Sikkema. And the thing that I find interesting about that is that, like we just talked through, 5 through 10 is supposed to be the tier for postseason caliber quarterbacks. What did Jared Goff just do this past season, Morgan? I might have some amnesia. I may have bumped my head. I did get into a car accident in February. Maybe I'm misremembering how the Lions season ended, but I was pretty sure it ended with them in the postseason. Did it not?
Yeah, I mean, 2 wins, should have been 3, shoulda, woulda, coulda, though. That's what people are going to say if they're not a Lions fan watching this video. I understand how that goes. But yeah, I mean, you would think postseason caliber quarterbacks. I was surprised when I first looked at this article and scrolled. I was like, all right, well, he's going to at least be at the back half of this tier. And yeah, surprise, he's not.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump down because I don't want to have to go through all these other quarterbacks, but you guys can see them on the screen. We have Jordan Love at 11, Trevor Lawrence at 12, still no Jared Goff, Brock Purdy at 13, Tua at 14. Okay, he's got to be after Tua though, right? Like there's no way. Nope. Kirk Cousins. Where does Jared Goff end up on this list, Morgan? 16.
Yeah, I just 16. This is where I'm confused, Trevor, because Kirk Cousins is, in my opinion, in the same tier as Jared Goff as a quarterback, right? A quarterback that you can win with for certain. A quarterback that can get you to the Super Bowl, possibly win it. He's in that tier. But Kirk Cousins is coming off an Achilles, guys. I mean, what? I don't really understand. And if we're factoring in supporting casts, like, yeah, Kirk Cousins is inheriting a pretty good situation. Like their line's pretty good. They have Bijan Robinson, they have Drake London, they have Kyle Pitts. Mm-hmm. However, as we know, though, the Lions have the best offensive line in football. Mm-hmm. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. So it's like, I'd still like supporting cast. If we're factoring that in, it goes Lions. Even taking aside the bias, I think you ask most intelligent football fans that are in the know, they would agree. So yeah, this is where I'm confused, man. I would definitely have Goff ahead of Kirk Cousins, Tua for certain.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least.
So this is the thing, right? And you and I talked about this a little bit in prep for this video. Whenever any kind of ranking is being done, whether it's by like just straight up like 1 through 32, if we're breaking them up into tiers like Trevor did, that's fine. One question I always typically ask people is, what are we putting emphasis on? Are we talking talent? Are we talking accomplishments? Are we talking skill set? Because based on the criteria that you are laying forward, are we going by stats? Like whatever the case may be, whatever the criteria that you set can drastically skew my list, can skew any list in my opinion. This list, if we're talking about, again, he's broken this down by almost like, hey, quarterbacks that you can win with. I don't understand how Jared Goff is middle of the pack if we're going by the metrics that Trevor set, which is basically like, hey, you have a tier that's set to, again, playoff caliber. And then this next tier that you put Jared Goff in is the melting pot of starters. Bro, like you said at the top of this video, like we are not crazy over the top like Jared Goff fans. I will never pretend to be. But he's for doggone sure better than Jordan Love and Trevor Lawrence. He's for doggone sure better than Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott.
And Tua.
Way better than Tua.
We're not big Tua fans.
I don't understand. Right? Jared Goff is coming off a season, like we just talked about, helped the Lions win the division for the first time in forever. They win 2 postseason games at home convincingly, not like some fluky stuff or anything like that. Convincingly, that offense was humming in both of those playoff wins. He's coming off a season where he was second in the NFL in yards. threw for 30 touchdowns. Yes, he threw 12 picks, but again, we talked about this going into the season. I didn't think there was a realm of possibility where Jared Goff was going to throw single-digit interceptions again anyway. But 12 still isn't bad, right? I believe he led the NFL in first down throws. Like, so he had the team success. He had the postseason success. Obviously didn't get to the Super Bowl, but still, winning 2 playoff games is more than some other quarterbacks that are on this list who only have maybe 1 playoff win on their resume. Or none. Like, I don't understand this disparity in ranking. Like I said, I'm not here to argue that Jared Goff is a top 5 quarterback, but he should probably be in the top 10 based off this criteria more.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, man. Like I'm, looking at Goff's counting stats even from last year, 30 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 4,575 yards. Aside from a couple bad, like just games where, and other things happen. Context always matters, right? We don't just look at things in a vacuum, but like the game against the Bears that the Lions lost and the game against the Packers that the Lions lost, like just turn the ball over a lot. And you put your defense, who was struggling at that point with personnel and, several different things, you put them in bad spots, and that's just losing football. That's a bad recipe unless you have the defense that can bail you out of some situations. But if Goff can eliminate those kind of games, where he is kind of the catalyst to a lot of the bad things happening for the Lions, I think you have to put him in the top 10, because aside from a little bit more mobility and, ability out of structure, I don't know what more you could really want for, because he operates this offense really well. Him and Ben Johnson have created it, and it works.
Yeah, at this point, and again, Trevor kind of mentions it, right? Like he gives Jared a good amount of praise in this article at the beginning of it by saying like, hey, he took steps forward by being more efficient, by hitting on more big time throws, by reducing his turnover worthy plays. So what's the knock? Like, okay, if a player has improved, why are they still stuck at middle of the pack? Why are they still at 16? And he basically says because he doesn't play well under pressure and outside of structure. Newsflash, not a lot of quarterbacks play well under pressure and out of structure. Like, there's a reason why the guys that we talked about in the top 5 and maybe top 6 or 7, why they're where they are, because those are the guys that probably do that pretty well, right? Patrick Mahomes is a wizard with the football when it comes down to plays breaking down around him and making a play. Lamar Jackson is a human highlight reel. Joe Burrow, again, not the same caliber of magic as a Patrick Mahomes, but still has made things happen. Justin Herbert, really athletic guy. Josh Allen, freak of nature at quarterback, kind of Big Ben-esque. And then you have someone like Matthew Stafford, who you even highlighted when we played them in the postseason, just made stuff happen. Is Jared that? No, but like you just said, he does everything else that you expect your starting quarterback to do, and he does it at a highly efficient rate. So I don't know if it's fair to put him this far down the list because of him not having skill sets that he's never had. Like, it's not like he had them at one point in time and lost them. Like, he's never been that guy, but he has still found ways of being more successful in the NFL, especially these last couple of years in Detroit.
Yeah, I love that point too, Meko, because you talk about it, right, guys? Like, this is different quarterbacks deal with pressure different ways. Okay, so like Mahomes can do it both ways. He can, adjust his arm angle and just eat a defensive end hitting him in the chest and making the throw, a la Matthew Stafford. Like, that's what he did against the Lions time and time again. But then Mahomes also has the ability to scramble, reset in the pocket. You have Joe Burrow, who can, he makes subtle adjustments, and he's sneaky athletic, not super athletic, but like similar to Tom Brady. Like, Burrow's maybe the best in football at navigating and in the pocket, like, just little adjustments, sliding forward so you can let the defensive end run the hoop and get behind you, right? So you have people like that. That's where Goff, and that's where people ding Goff. Our own Jeremy Reisman tweeted this back on December 11th, 2023. So after you're talking after the loss to the Packers on Thanksgiving. And
Yeah.
then, I want to say maybe this was after the Bears game. So think about that. But he said, since the bye, Goff's QBR under pressure is 0.6. That's less than 1 out of 100. It's the worst mark in football. And so that was from a study that Bill Barnwell did from ESPN on NFL Insiders. And that's where people ding Goff, because it's okay to be, to not be Mahomes under pressure, or even Matthew Stafford. But we need to limit some of those turnover worthy plays. And then you'll have a lot of guys like me shut up, because you do that and you eliminate some of these games where you're turning the ball over like, 3-4 times, because it's going to be tough to win a football game that way, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's why I said like a while ago, right? This video isn't necessarily to say like, hey, Jared Goff is a top 5 quarterback and he needs to start being talked about as one. I don't know. I think that top 5 in terms of quarterbacks is pretty solid, right? And especially when you start looking at a combination of things, when you start looking at talent and accomplishments and just ability to be that difference maker on their team, like that group is different, specifically for quarterbacks. Maybe it's not as different for other positions, but for quarterbacks, it's very different. But I think Jared Goff has long since ascended to middle of the pack. Like he's no longer just 16 out of 32, like literally perfectly in the middle. He's better than that. He's proven to be better than that. I kind of said this a little while ago. Like, does he have skill sets that are similar to some of these guys that he's ranked next to? Does he have a similar skill set as a Kirk Cousins? Yes. Similar skill set as a Tua? Yes. But he's gotten more out of his ability than either of those guys. He's maximized his ability far greater than Trevor Lawrence has. And I think Trevor Lawrence maybe has a higher ceiling, but out of whatever talent that they currently possess, Jared Goff has gotten more out of it to this point. So, Morgan, I'll just ask you like this, and we can kind of start to wrap this video up. If you were we both kind of agree that Jared should probably be in the top 10 on this list. For you, where would you have him slotted?
I'd probably have him either, 10. That's the thing, like, right? Like, how do you value Jordan Love, right? Like that, I'd probably put Jordan Love in front of Goff.
Okay.
Even though he hasn't accomplished as much, but Love looked crazy down the stretch. So I'd maybe just have him at 12. Because I kind of agree with the top 10 outside of Dak Prescott. So maybe even 11. I'd move him up to 11 too, because you kind of just shift everyone up and just mess with but I'd say 11, because I like that. Purdy's good, but at the end of the day, I would still probably take Goff, just because of, it's the proof is in the pudding, right? Like he got this second contract for a reason. But yeah, outside of that, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd probably have him about 8. Like I would put him up that high, and I, like you said, I'd move a couple people around. I'd move Dak completely out of the top 10. I would move Aaron, honestly, probably to 10, maybe 11. And I'd move some other guys up. Like I agree with you on Brock Purdy. I think Brock needs to be up a little bit higher, because again, I think his story is very similar to Jared, where we start to try to knock it because of system or weapons around them. And at the end of the day, like Brock Purdy has navigated his situation as perfectly as anybody else. I kind of like Jordan Love at 11. So again, maybe Aaron's probably even behind Jordan Love at this point. Like I don't know, but
yeah, definitely.
I do think Jared deserves that top 10 respect. I would have him, again, skill set wise. Do I like Jalen Hurts' skill set? Yes, but I like what Jared's gotten out of his skill set more so than what Jalen Hurts has gotten out of his skill set. So like, again, that's why I could probably have him at 8 above a Jalen Hurts versus, some other people. So that's kind of how I have it. But I mean, we kind of ranted on long enough, but like, yeah, I think the moral of this video is just that, like, listen, I think Jared has ascended. to this point going into 2024 where we can actually talk about him comfortably, like not having to shy away from it, comfortably talk about him in the breadth of him being a top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and the proof, I'm all about the tape, man. And yeah, he had a rough stretch of football there, like we talked about in December during some of those, the games where the Lions lost, but then he got it going, man. He made some big time throws, capital B, in the wild card round and divisional round, and even in the NFC Championship game. So, yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Like, and again, I hope a lot of people who really like Jared Goff, who sometimes get mad at us, watch this video, bookmark it, okay? Because we're not being haters here. We're just trying to, yeah.
No, I think we've always tried to again be objective and understanding that like he has way more value to the Lions than he probably does to a lot of other teams, but that's still great value, right? Like everyone has been kind of saying, it's kind of been like the slogan, like, hey, you're good enough for Detroit. Like that is very much true. And so I don't have to think that Jared Goff is a top 5 quarterback to think that he's still very good and that he's still very necessary for this team to be successful. I think me giving him top 10, like putting him in the top 10 is a huge leap for me, because last year I probably had him just outside the top 10. Like where you kind of have him now is probably where I had him last year, like around 11, 12, somewhere around there. I'm good. I'm perfectly fine with putting him in the top 10 this year.
Yeah, and I get that, and that's the cool thing too. Like I get the argument coming from that, like because I get it. I understand. So like there's discourse to be had there, because it's not just like a slam the door. Like someone's not going to call you. Well, they shouldn't call you stupid or anything or be mean anyways, but they're not going to, like it's.
I mean, they can. They ain't gonna say it to my face, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a legitimate discussion though, which is cool, and that speaks to how well Goff has played the last 2 years.
Well, yeah, and again, I'll say this and we can kind of wrap up, but like that's the other thing with any list, right? Players can move up and down that list by year performance. Consistency keeps you like in certain positions, right? That's why the top 5 has kind of remained the top 5 for so long. And it's why, like I said, I could see Aaron Rodgers kind of sliding, because has he really looked like a top 10 quarterback the last 2-3 years? Well, third year he won the MVP. So, all right, maybe the last 2 years?
2, yeah.
Like, no, not really. But he's going to, obviously, for some people, he's still going to get that respect because, well, hey, it's only been 3 years since he won an MVP. All right, fine. I guess.
Cool.
It ain't happening in New York.
No, sir. Agreed.
But that's going to pretty much do it for this video, guys. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Are you kind of, rocking what me and Morgan are saying here, that like, listen, Jared does deserve more respect, that he should be higher on this list that Trevor Sikkema put together? Or do you kind of feel the opposite, that, you know what, nah, 16 is right where Jared should be, and kind of explain why? But that's pretty much going to do it for this video. You can also go over to the PrideDetroit.com website. Check out the notes article that Jeremy put together. You can find the link to the article that Trevor Sikkema wrote at the very end of that article. So enjoy reading all the great things that Jeremy put together just to get to that link. But yeah, always check out the website. There's always new articles being uploaded over there. And please make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell over here on YouTube. That way you can be notified anytime we upload new articles, or geez, I keep saying articles. Anytime we upload new videos, or anytime if we ever get to the point we can start going live again, that would be awesome, because then you guys can catch us live and hang out with us and ask us questions, live.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for today's video, guys. I'm Meko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we will be sure to catch you guys in the next one.